Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Paul Featheringill. I am the USC Region Director for the Small Business Development Center, based here out of Charleston. And what I want to talk with you about today is how to write an effective business plan. So just to start, for those of you who might not be familiar with us, for those of you who may be attending one of our events for the first time, I want to let you know a little bit about the SBDC and who we are. So we are a statewide organization with over 50 consultants in 21 centers around the state. We actually are a nationwide program, so you can find us in any state in the country. We offer individual confidential business consulting one-on-one at no cost. That's a big part of what we do. Another thing that we do is what you're doing today. We conduct online and in-person training events for people who are looking to get information, to gather knowledge about what goes into starting and growing their businesses. And then we also provide referral to resources. So any services that we don't offer that might require things like an attorney or a marketing specialist or an HR specialist or anything like that, we can provide you referrals to resources of other people that we have worked with and that our clients have worked with to help you be successful with your business. We have highly trained consultants to assist both existing and startup companies in all industry segments. So we provide a variety of services, including advisement on business plans, fiscal and operations management, financing options, marketing strategies, human resources, and much more. We can help you if you are trying to find financing options and then to apply for that financing. We can help you if you're trying to figure out how to better market your business. We can help you most fundamentally with the business planning aspect of your endeavor, which is what we're going to talk about today. We also offer specialized services, which include government contracting, international trade, agribusiness, technology commercialization, veterans business assistance, and minority outreach. So if you're looking for any kind of specialized services, we have a lot of people that we work with who are looking to get into procurement, government contracting, those who are looking to import or export, those who are looking to get into some kind of food system or agribusiness business, so we can help you with those as well. You can visit our website if you haven't already at scsbdc.com to find a center and make an appointment. And as Carolyn mentioned, if you have a question as I'm going through, just put it in the box and we will take time to answer those when we get to the end. Excuse me. Okay, so let's talk first and foremost about the purpose of a business plan. And what I want to say to start off is that a business plan is one of the most important things that you are going to do in the entire process of your business. It is a roadmap for your business. So let me say this too. If you are in the startup phase, which means that you are still thinking about how you want to get your business off the ground, how you want it to operate, what kind of business you want to go into, this is a vital process for you to go through working on your business plan. But even if you're already in business and you haven't done this, this is still an extremely valuable process that you can use to help you go through and kind of see where you are and what you've done so far that's worked well, what you've done so far that hasn't worked well, and how you want to grow and expand your business in the future. So I say that to say, no matter what stage of business you're at, this is an extremely vital exercise for you to do. It helps you get your thoughts and ideas on paper. You know, one of the things about entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs are very smart, they're very capable, they're very talented, and they have a lot of ideas and a lot of directions that they want to go in. And so sometimes the challenge is you have to sort of segment and compartmentalize those things and figure out what order to do things in and what you want to focus on now and what you want to focus on later. And so it helps you get all those thoughts and ideas on paper. It helps you make decisions, most importantly, before you start spending money. So what I would suggest to you is if you're still in the planning stages of your business, work on a business plan before you start spending any money. Because as someone who is working to start a business or someone who is new in business, or really whatever stage of business you're in, the two most important resources you have are your time and your money. Okay. And both of those things are precious. And so the more time you spend on this business planning aspect up front, the more it'll help you make better decisions about how to spend your money. It can help you with analysis of your business. It can help you with decision making. It can also help you with communication. And I'll explain each one of these things going forward to give you a little bit more clarity about what I mean by that. But the key takeaway there is, before you really start investing time and money in your business, do some planning so that you know what's coming and that you know how to best spend your money. And do it before you start, as I said, and remember that it's an ongoing process. So don't just take your business plan after you write it and after you get your business open and after you get your financing and everything else. Don't just then put it in the drawer and forget about it. Start to think of it more as not just a business plan, but also as a strategic plan, right? Look at what you've already accomplished, look at what's working and what's not, revisit it, I would say at least every quarter, if not more often. And we can help you do that through the SBDC, just to see how your business is going. That way, you can build on what you're doing well. You can identify challenges that you're having. You can anticipate those that are coming and help you really grow your business to success. So think of this as an ongoing process, because no matter how effectively you do your business plan, there's going to be some things that you don't expect. So you want to continue to revisit this. You want to continue to revise it as you grow. So excuse me. So there's no one set way to do it. One of the things that we typically recommend, we will share a business plan template with you that we commonly share with our clients. You will find other business plan templates out there. It really doesn't matter which one you use, as long as you have the elements that are in it. But just make sure to understand or remember that your business plan is going to have different audiences. Okay. It might be a funder. It might be a potential investor. It might be a bank. It might be a landlord. You know, sometimes when you go to lease a space, they'll ask you for a business plan before they'll sign a lease with you so that they can assess how likely you are to be successful. It might be friends or family that you're trying to get involved in your business, either to support you financially or to help you in working in the business. So these are all different audiences that you're trying to impart different information to. So keep in the back of your mind that there's different ways to do your business plan based on who your audience is, and think about how you can adjust it based on that. There's also no set length to a business plan. The content length, again, is going to be based on your goals and objectives and your audience. You know, sometimes depending on what you're doing, you might need a 70-page business plan with charts and graphs and, you know, appendices and all that kind of thing in it. But you know what? That's a pretty scary prospect. So for most people, you don't need to do anything that detailed. For most people, a 10 to 12-page business plan with, you know, just your basic information in it is enough. But this is also why it's so important to take advantage of the resources that are out there, like the SBDC, that can provide you free consulting on your business plan so that we can help you work out how long should it be, what should you have in there, what kinds of things should you say based on the audience that you have. And that's my point in saying use available resources when possible, especially the free ones like SBDC. There are a lot of companies out there, excuse me, that will offer to write a business plan for you, and they will charge you to do that. I have seen people pay as much as $500 to $800 to $1,200 to get a business plan written. I would say, again, go back to think about what I said earlier, that when you're first starting your business, the two most valuable things that you have are your time and your money. Okay. And so think about, if you're going to give somebody $1,200 to write a business plan, just remember that the purpose of a business plan is for you to learn how your business is going to work and what you need to do to make your business successful. And so if you don't invest the time and the effort into researching and writing your business plan, it's not going to be beneficial for you. And the other thing I'll tell you from a practical perspective is that a lot of times lenders will not accept business plans if they're looking at you for financing if they've been written by someone else, because they want it to be an exercise where you really understand and that they can have confidence that you understand how your business is going to work. So look at resources like the SBDC that are free and that are available to help you do this wherever possible. Now, with the SBDC, I want to give you a caveat to that. We will help you write your business plan. However, we do not write it for you because, again, as I was saying, the important part of this is that you go through this exercise yourself. And so we will help you with the research. We will help you identify the kinds of things you need to have in there. We'll review it for you. We'll give you pointers. We'll give you direction, but we're not actually going to sit down and write it for you and then hand it off. We want you to be actively involved in that process because you are the one who is going to most benefit from it. And then, as I said, revisit and update it often as your business grows and changes, because that's the hope, right? That as over time, your business is going to grow, your business is going to become more successful, you're going to have new opportunities, potentially you're going to have new challenges. So make sure that this is something that you update and revisit and update often, and think of it not just as a business plan when you're getting started, but think of it as transitioning also into kind of a strategic plan as you're going through to think about how you want to go forward with your business. So here's some basic elements of a business plan, and I'll just summarize these real quick, and then I'm going to go through each one. And this might seem like a lot, and it might seem like a little bit scary and a little bit daunting and a little bit overwhelming. It's really not. It really doesn't have to be, but that's why I say it's really good to get assistance if you're looking to do this, because we can really help you figure out the best way to approach and do all of these things. So some of the different elements you're going to find in a business plan: executive summary, a confidentiality statement, which is really important, a value proposition, which you might have never heard of before. It's a really important, really interesting exercise to help you think about, why am I really in business? Why am I doing this? What is it that I'm trying to accomplish? Objectives and mission, ways that you can sort of lay out what you want this business to do, giving some background and information on your company, thinking about your customers and your market analysis, going through a marketing plan, and then thinking about your operational and financial models. How is this business going to operate? How is it going to run? And how is it going to make money? Because you'll hear me say this probably a couple of times, but if your business is not gaining customers, if your business does not have sales, if your business does not have some kind of revenue, you're not really in business. What you have at that point is a very expensive hobby. And that's what we want to help you to avoid, to make sure that you've got your business set up in such a way, operationally and financially, that you can grow and be successful. What are your products and services? And then a SWOT analysis. I'll talk about that with you. Talking about your management team, and then talking about your financial plan. And one of the reasons why it's so important, remember I mentioned earlier the different audiences that your business plan is going to have. Not every audience that looks at your plan is going to look at every one of these things. And that's why it's so important to think about what your audience is and what needs to go into each thing. Because, for example, I'll give you an example. So my background before I came to this job was in small business lending. And so I'll tell you, when I got a business plan, I would read the executive summary, I would read about the company idea, I would read about the management plan, and then I would skip straight to the financial plan. That's what I really wanted to see. What do the financials look like? Other people are going to look at different things. And so that's why it's important to think about, depending on who your audience is, what should be in each section of the business plan. So I want to go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. So first is the executive summary. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you, and this might seem counterintuitive, but here's what I'm going to tell you about the executive summary. It is the first thing that you're typically going to see in any business plan template that you use, either ours or any other one. But here's what I'm going to tell you. You should write it last. Okay? So what happens is, you see it at the beginning of the template, and it becomes a thing that most people say, okay, I'm going to try to dive in and write that first. But really what the executive summary is, it is the most read section of the business plan. It's where most people start to look at what the business is going to be and what the needs are. It's typically 1 to 3 paragraphs. But what you're going to do is you're going to take each of the other sections of the business plan that you write, and you're going to take 1 or 2 sentences out of each one of those sections. You're going to put those together, and that's going to make up your executive summary. That's why you want to write it last, because it's going to encapsulate, it's going to summarize everything else that you put into your business. Talk about your background, talk about your company, talk about your products, talk about your marketing, talk about your pricing strategy, talk about your financial needs. You're going to take all those other sections of the business plan and you're going to boil it down into about 1 to 3 paragraphs. So you really, it's one of the most important parts of your business plan, because it's a thing that you want to kind of hook your reader, hook your audience into determining, yeah, I think that this is a viable business, a viable idea that I want to get involved in. But don't try to tackle it first. Tackle it at the end after you've already worked through all of the other sections. Confidentiality statement. So this is really important. So when you come to work with, if you come to work with a consultant at the SBDC, as I mentioned to you, our services are all individual, one-on-one, no cost, confidential. So we sign a confidentiality agreement that we won't share any of your information with anyone else. But we're not going to be the only audience for your business plan. You're going to have other audiences for it. You're going to have potential finance people. You're going to have potential marketing people. You're going to have landlords. You're going to have different people that are going to be looking at it. So you want them to sign a confidentiality statement. So you want to include that as part of your business plan. And this is just an example that you'll find in our template of how it could be worded, because you want to make sure that all these other people that are looking at your business plan are bound by confidentiality, not to share your information with anyone else without your permission. And unfortunately, I've seen it happen before where people have done that. They've taken business information and they've shared it when they shouldn't have. So this is a really important aspect. Okay, the value proposition. The value proposition is a concise statement. And it's really important for you to think through this first, and then you're going to use it as a pitch statement to your potential funders, to your potential customers. What it makes you think about is, what's the benefit of my business? Okay, what benefit am I providing with the product or service that I want to offer? What am I offering to my customers? How will it better solve their problem than other things that are currently offered in the market? Okay, so when you think about going into business, generally what you're thinking is, okay, I see a need, I see a problem, I see an issue in the marketplace that is not being met, or that is not being addressed, or that I think I can address better or different or in a more unique way than anybody else. And so what this value proposition thinks through is, put together a concise statement that identifies what that is. What is your niche? What is your benefit that you're offering to your customers that solves a problem that they have, or that does something better than other similar products or services currently offered in the market? It's really valuable for you to do this first. This is your why. Why am I doing this? Why am I offering this business? What am I hoping to accomplish? And then use that as a pitch to your customers, okay? And so you can find a bunch of examples of these out on the web. Here's one of them. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Slack. What they are is they are a software company that provides an application that is used in office environments for things like inter-office communication, scheduling and sharing of calendars, different things like that. So it's a system for people in an office to share information with each other. And so theirs is be more productive at work with less effort, right? So what's their issue that they're trying to solve? Workplace productivity. And so what's their pitch? They're saying, we can help you be more productive at work in the office with less effort than what you're doing now. So it's very concise. It tells a potential customer, this is what I can do for you. This is what you want to think about in terms of putting together your value proposition. I know they can be a little tricky to do. I would say when you start working on your business plan, if you want to Google some examples, you can see a whole bunch of them out there. If you work with us, we can help you do some ideas and figure out what might be a good one for you. But it's an important process to go through to try to figure this out. The next thing is your objectives and mission. Now, I'm going to talk about mission first. This is where you're going to go back and say, okay, let me write a mission statement for my business. What is my unique industry, my unique service, something that I'm offering that no one else, excuse me. So this is where you kind of say, okay, what's my business mission statement? The objectives. Objectives are important because this is where you're basically setting goals for yourself, right? You're saying, okay, what do I want to accomplish with my business over the next month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 1 to 3 years, whatever time frame you set. Generally, I like to think of objectives in terms of what do you want to do over the next 6 months? What do you want to do over the next 12 months? And what you want to do when you're looking at objectives is you want to set things that are measurable. Okay. So in other words, when you're starting out with objectives, ask yourself the question, how can I measure whether or not my business is successful? Okay. So let's think about from the perspective of, let's say you are starting a restaurant. What are some objectives that you can use to measure how successful your restaurant is? How many customers do I have? How much customer growth do I have? Am I profitable? What's my profit margin? What are my cost of goods compared to my profit? These are all things that you can use, and they're very specific, and you don't want them to be vague. You don't want your objectives to be things like to grow my business. Well, yeah, you want to grow your business, but you want your objective to be something like to grow my sales by 25% in year 1, just as an example. Something like that, to grow my number of customers by 20% in the first 6 months. Whatever your time frame is, but give yourself, and I would say do 3 or 4 of these. And again, we can help you figure out what makes the most sense for your business. Do 3 or 4 of them, numeric, measurable objectives, so that you can go back and revisit and see if you are achieving them. And if you're not, then you can ask yourself the question, okay, which ones am I not hitting? And if I'm not hitting them, why? What do I need to adjust? Were they not realistic? Something working different than I thought it would? Whatever that is, it can help you work through making those changes. And it can really help you see from the very beginning to make sure that you are trending towards being successful, because that's really the idea. Are you growing? Are you gaining market share? Are you profitable? Are you doing these things to be successful? Okay. And I want to say to that analysis, that level of analysis, remember when I said the things that the business plan will help you do? And one of the things that I specifically mentioned was analysis. And that's where you start to see that, because it's very important for you as a business owner, no matter what stage you're at, whether you haven't started yet or whether you've started, but you're trying to grow and you're trying to be more successful. It's very important for you to keep a finger on the pulse of how your business is doing. You need to understand everything about your business in terms of what's working and what's not. Do I have customers? Am I making money? Am I profitable? Am I losing money on anything? And those objectives can help you with that analysis piece to understand to understand what's working and what's not. The worst thing I see, and I see it all the time, is when businesses, they get into trouble and they come in and they say, I'm not growing, I'm not profitable, I'm not making money. And I say, why not? Like, what are your monthly expenses? What's your monthly revenue? And they don't know, because they're not tracking these things. And so it's very important for you as a business owner to track these things and make sure that you understand how your business is performing. Another key element is company information. This is where we want to know, why are you doing this? Where did this idea come from? How did this idea start? Is it based on something you've done before? something you've seen, something you've got a passion for. How did this business idea start? What's the ownership structure? Is it just you? Is it a partnership? Is it going to be you and somebody else? Are you going to have a whole management team? Tell us about what the structure is. If you're already in business, tell me about your history. Tell me when you started, how the business has been working so far, what your successes and opportunities and challenges are, and then tell me about your location. Tell me these things about, give me some background on the company. Now, this is one of the most important parts, your customer and market analysis, because again, kind of as I said before, if you don't have customers, if you don't have revenue, you don't really have a business. What you have is a very expensive hobby, and those typically don't last very long. So you want to make sure before you start, or as soon as possible, that you understand who your potential customers are, what your potential market is, and where you find them. Okay, so it is crucial to start with market research. And there are some things that we can help you with. We at the SBDC, we have a couple of different tools where we can provide you high-level market research. Generally, it's aggregate national kind of high-level data, but it can give you some really good information for specific industries about how the industry is performing, how it's growing, what the opportunities are, what the challenges are. So that's a good piece of market research for you to start with. And again, this market research piece, this is something where we will help you. We will guide you through it, but it's also something that you're going to have to do on your own, and that you're going to have to go out and find some of the information. I would also say, start with the basic Google search. Look at the population in the area that you're in. Look at demographic trends. Look at all of those things so that you can understand your potential market. So who is your target market? That's the first question that you want to ask. So just to give you an example, a pretty obvious example of identifying your target market, but if you're starting a daycare, who's your target market? Your target market for a daycare is parents with young children who need childcare, right? So once you identify that as your target market, then you want to say, okay, based on the area, well, then you say, okay, I've identified my target market. So what do I know about them? Okay. Demographics, lifestyle. What do they like to do? Where do they like to go? Where can I find them? How much disposable income do they have? How much are they willing to spend on child? I want to try to figure out about your target market so that you know how to reach them. Then you want to know how many are there. Okay. So if I'm looking to open a daycare in West Ashley, okay, so pull your demographics on West Ashley. How many parents with young children are there? Okay. Is there enough that you can capture enough of that to make that a successful business? Where do you find them? Again, what do they like to do? What are their shopping habits? What are their leisure habits? Where do they work? Where do you find them so that you know how to reach them? And then the other question you want to ask yourself is this a growing market or a declining market? And I will tell you that, like, for example, to use the daycare, that's a growing market, right? Because people are moving here. A lot of the people that are moving here are young families that have children. And so that's a growing market. But that's something that you want to know. And these are things that also help you to make location decisions, right? When you think about where you're looking to locate, these questions about where your target market is, where do they live, what do they do, this will help you to understand potentially what's the best place for you to locate based on where you can most easily access your market. So that's some high level figuring out your target market, your demographics, all that. Then you want to put together a marketing plan. So what's your overall strategy? Once you figure out who your target market is, where they are, how do you reach them? Social media, flyers, networking, what's your best way to reach them? And then you need to figure out pricing. This is hard. I'm not, and this is something that we can help you with as well. The challenge that I typically see with people when they're pricing their product or service is they typically underprice it because you don't want to potentially lose customers by overpricing your product. And I understand that, but what can end up happening if you're not careful is that you can end up losing money. Okay. So if you underprice your product, you can get into a situation, and I see it all the time, where you end up spending more to provide your service than what you're making. If you're selling something for $5 that costs you $10 to make, then that's not a sustainable business. And so that's why it's really important to do research and to get help to figure out how to price your product. What kinds of sales and tactics should you use? And we can help you with this. I mentioned social media. That's an obvious one. There's a lot of free ways to advertise there, and some paid ways that are very effective, looking at things like Facebook, Google Ads, LinkedIn, Instagram, different ways that you can get the word out, especially depending on the kind of business that you have. There's networking with people, there's flyers, there's different kinds of advertising. So you really want to look specifically at your type of business and how you can. I'll give you an example of this. So I'm working with a client that is a physical therapist who specializes in working with people who have injuries as a result of running. Okay, she's a marathon runner, and she works with people who injure themselves through running and other kinds of athletic things. So her marketing plan for the way she's been advertising her business is through running clubs, running magazines, fitness places, different fitness groups, different things like that. So that's where you can really start to think about, because again, let's go back to the idea that your two most important things are time and money, right? And advertising is one of those things, and marketing is one of those things. And we see it all the time that as people start to struggle a little bit financially with their business, it's the first thing that they cut out. But the problem is, it's also one of the most important things you're going to do, because if you're not growing your customers, if you're not growing your business, it's very hard to make it sustainable. So you want to really invest some time and spend some time making sure that you've developed a strong marketing plan so that you know that you're investing your money in the right places. So then what do your operational and financial models look like? So when you start a business, one of the things that oftentimes you're going to find, and I see this especially a lot with restaurants, excuse me, is figuring out things you want to focus on selling, right? One of the worst things I see usually with restaurants is you go in and they're starting out and they've got like an 8-page menu, and you say, okay, you need to cut down, because if you've got all that stuff on there, you're going to have to buy product, buy supplies to be able to provide all of that stuff. And that's going to put a major hurt on your cash flow. So really think about, especially when you're starting out, what are my products and services that are going to be the most valuable to me? What are the things that I think are going to be my best sellers? And make sure that you're continually revisiting this. If you've got product or service that you're offering, especially if you're investing money in selling it, and being able to provide it, and it's not selling, then you're losing money. And so then what you need to do is you need to cut that stuff out, or sort of refocus it, repurpose it to make it profitable for you. So make sure you're keeping an eye on your products and services. What's selling and what's not? What are you making money on? What are you losing money on? Pricing, we mentioned. How do you price your products and services? And I mentioned what a challenge that is. Some of that is based on what your customers are willing to pay. Some of it is also based on margins. And what I mean by that is, what's the difference between what you're selling something for and what it's costing you to make? Like I said, if it costs you $10 to make and you're selling it for $5, you're losing money. You really want it to be the other way. You want to make it for $5 and sell it for $10. Generally, we kind of say, and this varies a lot. This is a very general guideline, but you want your margins generally to be at least 30 to 40%, meaning you're pricing something at least 30 to 40% higher than what it is going to cost you to provide it. So you really want to pay attention to that. And remember too, okay, that with pricing, because if you set your prices too high and things aren't selling, okay, then you can go back and revisit that. Remember, it's a lot easier to lower your prices than it is to raise them, right? So if you start your prices too high a little bit and you're having trouble selling things, you can always come back and revisit that and say, okay, let's bring the prices down. It's a lot harder to say, wow, I've way overpriced this. I need to go in and raise my prices. So I just say that to say, you really want to put some time and effort into figuring that out. And one good way to do that is do your research, do your market research. And that includes, doing some sort of reconnaissance or doing some market research on other businesses in your market that do similar things to what you do. Okay. Look at how they're pricing things and use that as kind of a baseline to see what might work for you. For example, if you're opening an ice cream store, go out and look at other ice cream stores in the area and look and see what they're charging for stuff and see how that might compare to what you're looking to do. That's usually a good place to go. So then you want to look at what resources do I need to successfully operate your business? How much money do I need for working capital to get it started? What kind of equipment do I need to provide my product and service? What kind of supplies do I need? How many employees do I need? These are all questions that you want to try to figure out as part of the business plan so that you know going in when you open the doors what you need to be successful. And then figure out your fixed and your variable costs. I'm not going to go into this a whole lot because I know it can be a little bit confusing, but your fixed costs are the things that are the same for your business every month. Rent, generally, payroll is a fixed cost because you're going to pay people the same thing every month. Your phone bill, these are things that are fixed costs because they're going to be the same thing every month. Your variable costs are generally going to be things like your supplies, your materials that you use to provide your goods and services, because it's going to vary based on how much of something you supply. And so you want to make sure that you have enough cash on hand so that as you grow your number of customers, you can meet that, right? That you have the resources to be able to meet that. I'll give you an example of that. I was working with a bakery at one point, and she at one time said she wanted to double the number of stuff, the amount of stuff that she was selling every week. And what we found as we looked at it was, well, that would be great, but she didn't have enough cash to buy the supplies and materials that she needed to do that. So that's why you want to keep an eye on those costs, is to make sure that you can manage that growth. Next is products and services. Describe what it is that you are offering. Why is it unique? Okay, pretty much no matter what you do, somebody else in the market offers something similar to what you do. So what you're going to tell me is, why is this going to be successful? Why are people going to either buy my product instead of somebody else's or buy my product along with somebody else's? And what I mean by that is, so sometimes it could be that what you're providing is really unique and there's nobody else in the area that does it. Sometimes, so like let's say you're opening a restaurant and you make a particular kind of food that nobody else in the market does. Okay, that's what's unique about your business. Other times, it's going to be that there's demand in your market that's not being met. So let's go back to the daycare example. One of the things that we see with daycares right now, and we've got a lot of them that we've been working with, is that most of them are successful and most of them have a waiting list because there are more kids than there are spaces. Okay. And so that's a case where you're providing a service where there's other people that do it, but there's enough demand that the demand is not being met. So whichever it is in your case, whether you're meeting a demand that's not being met or you are providing something that's unique and different from your competition, tell me what that is in your business plan. Explain to me why I can be confident that you're going to have customers. Identify who some of your potential competitors are and how you compare to them. What do you do that's different than them? or, what are you doing that they're not doing? Make sure that you research, identify your competition and compare yourself to them. And then talk about your customer service. What's your approach to customer service? Are you in person? Are you online sales? Are you both? Just talk about your customer service and how that's going to work. Then it's helpful to sit down and go through something called a SWAT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And again, we'll help you walk through this. It seems a little bit, we can give you examples of it. We can help you walk through it. What are the strengths of your business and your business model? What's the biggest need? What's the biggest thing you're good at? What is it that you think makes your business really strong? What's your biggest weakness? Is there an area of expertise that you don't have on your staff? Is there a product that you think you might have trouble getting? What kinds of weaknesses do you have? How are you going to overcome those? What opportunities do you have for growth and expansion into new markets, new products, franchising, whatever that might be? What kinds of opportunities do you have? And then what threats are out there? Generally, what I tell people is, one of the threats that everybody wants to think about is, let's say somebody else comes into the market doing the same thing that I am. And how are you going to address that? They see how successful you are. They come in and do the same thing, right? McDonald's was the first fast food hamburger joint into the market. They made a ton of money. Everybody else saw how good they did. And next thing you know, 4, 5, 6 others come along, right? Well, all of that is shaken out and everybody's making money. But that's the question is, if other people see how well you're doing and they move into your market, how are you going to respond to that? And then what other threats might there be out there? Talk about your management team. Who are the key people that are going to be involved in your business, and talk about their background and experience and what knowledge gaps. So let me give you an example. Somebody comes to me and says, I'm going to open a restaurant. The first thing I say is, have you ever worked in a restaurant before or owned one? And if they say no, then generally what I'm going to say is, then you need to go out and get a job and start working at one for a period of time so that you can understand how it works, so that you can get that knowledge and experience. If you say no, but I have a partner or a manager that I'm going to hire who's worked in a restaurant before, that works too. What I need to make sure of, if I'm going to invest in your business, or I'm going to lease you a space, or I'm going to give you a loan or anything like that, and I want to make sure you're going to be successful, is that you have the background and experience to be able to manage your business. And here's the other thing. Most people get into business because they have a talent for something, they're passionate about something, they're good at something, they're a good cook, they're a good baker, they have invented a product or make a product that nobody else does. People get into business because they're passionate about something. But what you find when you get into business is there are certain things that you have to do, regardless of the type of business that you're in, that you might not be familiar with. You have to manage finances. You have to pay taxes. You have to manage payroll. You have to, do all of these things. You have to do hiring. You have to handle insurance. You have to handle suppliers and inventory and all these things. Most people don't know how to do this. So, there's a couple different ways you can go about doing it. One is, you can educate yourself and try to figure it out yourself. The other thing is you can hire people to help you. Hire an accountant to help you set up your finances. Hire an attorney to make sure you have everything set up. These are all good things. Hire marketing people to help you with the marketing. So just make sure that one way or another, whether you have the information or knowledge yourself, or whether you're going to hire it, make sure that we can see that you've got the background and experience to make this successful. And the other thing I'll say is, because I hear this all the time, make sure that you're hiring enough people to help you with your business. I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come in and sit down in my office and say, okay, I'm going to open a business. I'm going to open a retail store. Okay. How many days a week are you going to be open? 6. How many hours a day? 10 to 8. Okay. So, and remember, if you own a business, you're going to be there an hour or two before or an hour or two after. Okay. So you're working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. So think about how many hours that is. And if I say, how many people are you going to hire to help you? And they say, I'm going to work it myself until I become profitable and can hire somebody. How long do you think it's going to take before you burn yourself out on that? And so that's why you want to think about, how big of a team do I need to make sure that I can do this successfully without burning myself out? Okay, we're almost there. So the next piece is the financial plan. And at one point I had a whole bunch of charts and graphs and stuff in here to show you what all these things look like. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you what needs to be in here. And then when you come to work with us or start doing a little bit of research, we can go through these things specifically and I can show you the documents and everything. Oh, excuse me. So the first thing you need to figure out is, how much money do I need to start this business? Okay. And then once you figure that out, you say, okay, how much do I have of my own money that I can contribute? And then how much do I need to borrow from somebody else? And what I will say in relation to this is, you have to have some of your own funds to put in. So let's say you need $200,000 to start a business. You're going to need at least 10 to 20%, okay, of that, of your own money to be able to put in. Any lender or investor is going to want to see that you have some of your own cash to put into the business. Then, so we're going to put together that source and use of funds. How much money do you need? How much money do you have? How much do you need to borrow from somebody else? Then we're going to help you put together a profit and loss and a cash flow, which is going to show you, how much do I think I can make? What are my expenses? And how long is it going to take me to become profitable? That way you can sort of see, and most lenders and investors are going to want to see 2 to 3 years of financial projections of how long it's going to take you to become profitable, so that they can see how that you can repay your loan. And then a balance sheet, we can work through that with you. That shows you what your assets and liabilities are. And then finally, assumptions. This is something that oftentimes people don't think about, but when you're doing projections for a business, and you say, okay, I'm going to have 50 customers a week. Each customer is going to spend an average of $50. How did you get to those numbers? Why do you think those numbers are accurate? And that's what's going to go into your assumption. So again, this is just very high level, the kinds of things that you're going to have to develop as part of a financial plan. But this, I would strongly recommend that you get some assistance with from us or from somebody else. So, final considerations. When you look at your financials for the plan, are they consistent? If you tell me you need $200,000 to start the business in your executive summary, don't tell me on page 5 that you need $300,000. Make sure your numbers are consistent. Because here's what happens. As you work on writing this business plan, you're going to spend so much time on it, and you're going to go through it so much, and you're going to look at it so much that you're going to start to miss things. This is another reason why it's good to get help, because you can have another set of eyes that can read this for you and make sure that it's accurate. Are your timelines and dates correct? A lot of times people will put in their business plan, I'm going to open in August, I'm going to hire somebody in September, I'm going to have my first customer in October. Just make sure that you go through and that those are consistent and realistic. Are your assumptions realistic? Don't tell me you're going to have $1 million in profit the first year unless you can really justify that. Have you considered an exit plan or a disaster plan, right? One of the consultants here had a client that he worked with that opened a business downtown, and it has flooded 3 times over the last year because of some of the different weather events that we've had here in Charleston. So if something like that happens, do you have a plan for dealing with that? Are you in an area where things like that are possible? And have you thought about an exit plan? Do you want to sell the business? Do you want to pass it off to a family member? Do you want to just close it? Think about what might be an exit plan at some point when you don't want to do it anymore. And the reason that you want to start thinking about that at some point is because that can help you position the business financially and in terms of management and everything else to be able to sell it or to be able to pass it on. Do you understand all the financial and proprietary information in your business plan? Do you understand where the numbers came from? Do you understand your products? Do you understand how to manage your business? Because when a lender or an investor or somebody else sits down and looks at your plan, they're going to start asking you questions about your plan. And if you don't know how to answer that, that's going to be a problem. Think about your personal finance, borrowing money for a business. What does your credit look like? Typically, you're going to want to have a credit score of at least 650 to be able to get financing for a business. As I mentioned, do you have cash on hand, that 10 to 20% to be able to put in? And most of the time, you're going to have to personally guarantee a loan, which means you're personally guaranteeing that you'll repay it out of your personal finances if the business isn't able to. Are you prepared to do that? Make sure on your business plan that you have a cover sheet with contact information. Most people, lenders, and us, the business consultants, will have 3 or 4 or 5 of them that we're working on at any given time. Make sure that you have your contact information and put a date on there of the last time that you updated it so that we know how reasonable or recent it is. Make sure your financial projections are reasonable. And as I mentioned, make sure that you have equity to put into the business, some of your own cash. So I threw a lot at you. I went through that very quickly, over about 45, 50 minutes. I want to leave time for questions. So if you need help, you can go to our website. It's right here to sign up and request counseling. I'm happy to share these slides with you. And then here's my contact information. So thank you, and I'll take any questions that you have. Yes, Ms. Harris.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Would drop shipping have a different business plan, since most of it is like I'm really not putting too much money for it except for my website?
Yeah, it would have a different emphasis in terms of, really focusing on your financial needs for starting that up, your and all that sort of thing. But yes, it would absolutely be slightly different, and that gets to the idea again of, depending on the kind of business you're in, you're going to have sort of different elements. Those are the basic elements, but different focus, different emphasis, different kinds of research you're going to want to do. But we could certainly help with that as well.
Great. I definitely am signing up.
Okay, great. Where can we get a copy of the template for the business plan? We will send you one.
Sir?
We'll send one to all of the participants. Yes.
So my business has been operational for at least 3 years, probably 4.
Okay.
My market analysis, market research, and my sales have been local to Columbia.
Okay.
Looking to create an e-commerce website. So my question is, do you have any pointers for identifying a target market when it would be shipping would be nationwide? Like, how do you narrow that down?
Yeah, we can certainly talk through that with you and work through that with you and help you with some of the research to try to figure out where your markets would be.
Great. Signing up as well.
Okay.
Sorry if I'm asking too many questions.
No, not at all. No, please.
I'm just curious about your experience with Chat GPT. If it's something that you've seen as a helpful tool or the opposite in terms of doing a business plan.
Well, in all honesty, I've seen a little bit of both. I've seen it be helpful for certain things. For example, I've seen people workshop business names through it, for example, asking for suggestions for business names. I think it's fine to use it as long as you just consider it to be a starting point. Okay. So in other words, as long as you then dive into whatever it gives you and say, okay, does this make sense? What do I need to add? What's missing? Do I understand all this? It can be a good way to start, but I wouldn't consider it to be your only tool.
Thank you.
As far as scheduling an appointment in Columbia, yeah, you can shoot me an email and we can get you to the right person. We have consultants in Columbia as well.
I've got one more.
Sure, please.
Dive into or give it a little bit more detail on being properly staffed. It almost seems like a catch-22 for me, just because in my opinion, I need more funding to get the staffing, or
Sure.
if what the business plan is about, the plan, or how I would be able to do that.
Well, and that's part of why it's important to do it as part of your business plan, because then when you're looking for funding, whether you're looking for loans, whether you're looking for investors, you know how much you need to be able to get to that staffing level. So you can include that in what you're asking for.
Perfect.
You see what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
way, it's not just based on, because any business that you like, what kind of business do you have?
It's a bakery.
A bakery. Okay. So it probably has taken you some time, right, to grow to where you are now. So any business is going to take some time to grow, but you're still going to need that help as you're growing. So you want to make sure you build that amount of money in from the beginning, from your ask, from your loaner, your investor, so that you have enough working capital on hand to pay those people that you need to help you until the business can support that itself. Now, you don't want to go crazy, right? I mean, you don't want to start paying people $200,000 a year. That's not what I'm saying. You want to be realistic, but you also want to make sure that you're planning for, because here's the other thing. If you don't plan for it from the beginning, it gets harder to do it later. You think it's going to be easier because you got more money, but you haven't really planned for it, so it gets harder. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Definitely. I'm that
Okay.
entrepreneur that's working all the hours, so I'm trying to get rid of some.
I hear you. No, I totally hear you. Yeah. And I've talked to so many people and they're just working ridiculous hours every week. And a lot of times, honestly, from what I see, people leave businesses. Sometimes it's because they don't have enough money. It doesn't work financially, but other times they just burn out. And so that's why you want to be careful not to do that.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you all. We'll get a business plan template out to you, and go ahead and shoot me an email if you'd like some additional help, and we'll get you signed up.